Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What's Your Mess? Mental, Emotional, Social Status of Life. I am your host, Tracey D Armstrong, and we are back again with another amazing episode with another amazing guest. So I am going to get out of the way and let my guest introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Sasha Harris Greenidge. I'm a certified mindset coach. And I did have some mess. I have two kids. I'm married. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I've been in special education for 20 years. That will be coming to an end, I believe, very, very soon. But that's part of all of that. Yeah.
Wow. No, did you say, okay, I got to pause. Did
Okay.
you say you've been in special education for 20 years?
20 years.
Oh my gosh, you look amazing.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
I just got to tell
42.
you.
I am
For
42.
real.
Yeah.
Wow. So, congratulations on that because I've been in education going on next year will be my 10th year. And I know special education is it's a whole
It's
different beast.
yeah. Yep. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. It's very rewarding, but you're working hard. So
Yes, 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 yes. So let's tell everyone a little bit about your mess and what it is that you've gone through that you've come out of.
all right. So this is a story, like, ironically, I kind of always look at my design and what I'm meant to talk about and things like that. And it was my story. So it is my mess. My mess is my message. And so what I love to talk to women and coach women on is the mess of tethering your happiness, your self-worth, everything to other people and these external validations. And for me, wearing this mask at work and being this perfect employee, being in a marriage where he has his own mess. And just tethering that happiness to that's a big weight for him to ask of me, for his happiness. And to kind of take that, because that was a big chunk of my mess, was his. And growing up, expectations that family had wanted for me. We all go through this life of just kind of, oh, graduate high school, go to college, get married, have kids if that's your choice. But for me, a lot of things were not my choice, or so I thought. And there were a lot of behaviors from people that I allowed. Um, and you just sort of become a shell of yourself. And what that looks like is you don't even know what you like. And so much so that you get to the point where, like, I got, I was looking for help for my business, and reached out to a coach, and it was like, well, what do you want? And I just would go through the list, and it's kind of like, oh, well, that's what my husband wants, and that's kind of what my parents wanted for me, and this is the expectation for the job. If you do this, then I will whatever. Like, just these really unhealthy transactions that did not have appropriate boundaries. And this is with everybody, whether it was family, friends, or coworkers. So,
Hmm. Completely understand that,
mhm,
most definitely. And like you said, when they asked you, what did you want? And you start naming things, you're like, okay, well, is that really what I want? Or is that my husband's one? Okay, is that
right.
my parents' one? Like, so with all of that, how does that affect you mentally? Because mentally, were you having to try to figure out like what you wanted? Talk about that.
Right. So you're never in a really good headspace. And when I've actually did a talk about this, it was like I it was a shell of myself. I was very depressed. You don't see, you go day by day. It's just everything is day by day, and it's just like, I made it today. And, or, like, that was the whatever expectation, small, little, minute expectation for that day, that you just got through it. No goals, nothing to really look forward to. And it was just going through these motions. When I look back at it now, there's a quote that comes up all the time when that was shared with me, and it was like, we all go through life trying to safely tiptoe our way to death. How awful is that, right? And that's how I felt, because
Wow,
that's
I've
all
never
we
heard
do.
that one before.
Yeah,
Yeah, really
that hits,
tiptoeing your
right?
way to death.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we just can't be safe like that. And it was
No.
just like, and I always, anytime that I felt as though like I wanted to kind of rise above or do anything else, people would, with their good intentions, be like, that's not something maybe you should do. And like, people love to use kids, like, you have kids or whatever, whether it was to build a business or to do something, but your state of mind and anxiety and things like that, like, was perpetuated by people
Hmm.
from, they're helping me. But meanwhile, that's all, we're doing when we just kind of fill other people's expectations. And
Yeah.
my dreams are like looking at what it is that I am supposed to be doing, and where I'm supposed to go, and who I'm supposed to be leading and helping and things like that. You just get led to this really dark place,
Hmm.
and you just keep, the best thing I can describe it as is just wearing this mask for everybody, for my husband, for my parents. I was always very real with the children, but like, even showing up as that super mom and not really admitting when I was tired, and having to just kind of say, not today, or, whatever, just always rising to that level at which they need me. And it's, anybody out there, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. And I even had people very close to me, family, saying like, I forget where it was I wanted to go, San Diego with my girlfriend. And it was just like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that or whatever. It's like, that was, the kind of the beginning of taking charge for myself. And needing that time where I wasn't being called or pulled, or an expectation, but to have fun that at that time. And that's really important. It's really this, having this sense of self and what it is that you want. Otherwise you're at the shadows and position and mercy of other people and their mess.
Right. And
Yeah.
and I'm so glad you said that, because as you're talking, I'm listening and I'm thinking about the listeners in the audience, and I'm sure many people can resonate with that, like the being pulled in this direction by the husband, this direction by the kids, and it leads you to like this dark place where you're like you said, you kind of went into a little state of depression where you're like, okay, well, what's in it? Not what's in it for me, but what about me,
Right.
and that time of taking care of yourself. And then when you say you try to get away and take a vacation just to enjoy yourself, people made you feel like, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that
Yeah, how
because
could
you
you
got
do that?
kids. Right. And it's like, but you have to really do that. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but emotionally, how did that take a toll on you and your life?
You shut down. Like, I shut down. Um, and what tends to happen is you shut down, you stop all, like, feeling. I really, what I started to do was hermit a lot and not go out. And you start to really get into a dark place that it's really hard to claw your way out of. The stories in your head of, it's like a vicious cycle. It's like, you don't really want to go out, and then people stop asking you to go out. And now you have this false story in your head of why it is that you're not going out and doing things, or with certain people. And just this feeling of like, you just can't do anything. Like you just can't do anything. And being on autopilot is something that I now know, because we'll always get back into these places of anxiety and depression and things like that. It is how we grow. But I will never really I never want to get back into that autopilot of just like getting up, going to work, doing this, doing stuff with the kids, going back home, going to sleep, and just waking up and doing it all over again. And just this Groundhog's Day of like life, just doing the same things over and over again, didn't help to kind of, it only perpetuated this feeling of just not being enough, not really knowing what I'm supposed to do, and just allowing people to kind of drag me along through their life, their mess, their dramas, their all of that stuff. And
Wow.
with
Yeah.
no help to anybody, but I did my job well, but the strength it takes at that, you're already at ground zero to show up at work, put on that smile and
Mhm.
go through work and then come back and just, you have a little bit left in the tank for the kids, and it's not a life to live. And for
Right.
too many years too, I hate to admit, like that was my story.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, I know you're not alone. That's a lot of
Hmm.
people's stories like that. Like you said, that every day getting up, doing the same thing, and it's like that vicious cycle, and the emotional toll it takes on you, where you're putting, like you said earlier, you put that mask on, you
Yeah,
put that face on, you put that smile on, and you go, and then you come home, and then you're exhausted and you're drained, and then you still have to do everything at home. And you kind of talked about the social aspect a little bit right there, because you say you kind of became like a hermit, where you didn't really want to go out, but then like people stopped asking you to go out, then the thought. So talk about your social life. How did that affect you socially?
well, yeah. So even if like, I like to think of myself as an introvert anyway, and
Mhm.
I know there's some people that are going to be like, oh yeah, like I'm an introvert anyway. It's very different. COVID also like kind of like showed me
Mhm.
that we always need some interaction, and you kind of took that for granted. But when you only are alone with your darkest thoughts, and you don't have that your person, like your best girl, or anybody else, or family, and you're really sheltered away, it really takes that toll socially. So you're not interacting, which is, as humans, we need that in some capacity. Even the most reclusive people, people who live in the mountains and whatever still need to go into town and interact with people and then kind of go back. We really would die without that kind of communication with people. And so like what started to happen is just this sense of self and this sense of love, and just the things that we need from people, hugs, oh my God, like, and but just continuing to have that mask on and be like, I'm fine, and I'm fine, and things like that. It just kind of really cuts off the head of your social life, so to speak. It really, and when you're not in a good place and you're alone with yourself in a negative space, that's
Mhm.
not, yeah,
That's a good point. Alone, because I'm glad you said it. You said alone with yourself, but in a negative
negative
space.
space.
Because
Yeah,
when you're
there's a
in that
big
negative
difference.
space, all those thoughts that are not productive for your
Right,
life, those negative thoughts come in, and sometimes, you act based on those thoughts, and it's not necessarily the best actions. And
right.
so, with all of this, I'm just wondering, because, like, as far as your status of life, so you said that you went on doing this for several years,
Several years.
and you have a husband, you have the kids, you have your work, you have your parents, you have your family. How did it affect your status of living, like that circle?
Like in terms of like just the entire like social life and everything, I think, well, arguably my husband would say like definitely like very recluse. My personality changed and things like that. for everybody else, I think because, and nobody really wants to admit it, but upon studying myself, we're all selfish and we all want to like kind of talk about ourselves and things like that. So so long as everybody else, I was meeting some kind of expectation for them, they were
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some went it so far to reach out and kind of like see that there was some kind of concern there and like that, like I needed a little bit more. But you know, for the most part, and especially when you're good at wearing that mask and things, and you can just pass just enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm okay. Because some people really are like, oh well, I don't want to get all up in her business and stuff like that. Anyway, okay, she's okay. Like, whatever. Um, but the people that kind of saw through that and would come in, I still was able to just kind of be like, I'm all right, but to kind of push away and things like that. It's just there's no sense of self. And that's like that's the hardest thing. Just everything that love, laughter, all of this stuff is just not there.
Right.
Yeah, but
And
relationship
yeah, like
wise, it's terrible on that.
yeah, and when you said like right there, you said like there is no sense of self. Like that is like the worst. Like when you really don't understand yourself, you don't know yourself, you don't even feel like you have a self, you know?
Mhm.
So with all of that being said, and with everything that you kind of went through, how did you come out of it? What did you do so that you do feel more now a sense of self?
Yeah, so what I started to kind of see was there's moments where you feel like, okay, cannot do this. And like I said, at the time I was trying to do how I came to my coach was I was at the time doing a network marketing business. And I was like, shocker, this was really hard. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna hire a coach to do this or whatever. So she was a business coach, but she's incredible because the way that she does things, it does start with you, like anything that we do. So I began to really study myself. At first it was through thinking into results, with Bob Proctor. Before he passed, she worked really closely with him. And then she brought on Gene Keys in human design, and I exploded. So that kind of stuff was like, that was the predecessor for being like really hard truths for me. That was when the question of, what do you want? And that took months to figure out what that was. And then it was, the hardest truth, and it took me like a year and a half because I used to be so angry, which was two things, which is everything in your life was a choice. That was the hardest thing. I was like, I didn't choose to be broke. I didn't choose to stay at this job. I didn't choose, to argue with my husband all the time. I didn't choose that, like we automatically, and then it's like, well, yeah, because you could have left your husband. You could have left your job. You don't have to allow all these people into your life and whatever. You can get up and go and do something else and everything else. And everything is what you allow. So
Mhm.
that was a big opening to being very receptive to, okay, like, well, I don't want to do this. And now you start to ask yourself healthier, different questions. And then with Gene Keys and human design, this self-study became it's all encompassing internally now. Like like can now look and be like, oh my goodness, Tracy's doing so amazing with this podcast. Where I like maybe years ago I would have been like, oh, maybe I should do a podcast, or maybe I should do that. Like it was very like, because there's no sense of self there. Now
Mhm.
it's like, okay, I know what my path is. This is so beautiful. And through Tracy, we like together, we can share a healthier message and things like that. So what really began to happen is this beautiful self-study of myself and then being able to appreciate everybody else and what it is that they do and not long for it. And a lot of people, when you start to go study yourself and find out your gifts and your potential and everything else, is you are going to lose people. You start to realize how many of those people that you tethered your happiness with, when you step back and you stand tall and you're stronger, are all of a sudden like, oh, I can't pull the strings.
Mm-hmm.
And they gotta go. And some
You
have
gotta
let
go.
themselves out, and some it's just like, "Goodbye." You or like, "This is what I'm doing now." And, really standing in my power and what it is I have to do, because this mission is so much bigger than, not than people, but, like, this is something that is so beautiful, that is, like, my soul's work, that if you don't see that, you're not here. You're just not here, and that's okay. So beautiful things coming from all of that, but it's just that it's a beautiful thing to find myself. And I am 42, and that journey started to begin at like 37, 38. But that's
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful thing about that. I know a lot of people are like, well, you're 42 now, and some people are already in their head like, oh, that's midlife, and that's a whole nother thing that I've really been starting to talk about. Is just like, we have this thing of midlife crisis, and you're not supposed to be in that. We've gained all of this wisdom, all of that experience that I just described has been just hoisted me up to where I'm supposed to be, and sharing to kind of help others with that. That was something I never wanted to lead with or share or anything, but it is that my mess is my message. And, I just think it's really, really important that people realize that this is all of that experience is now to bring you to your purpose. It's not like to bring you to death, right? We're not
Right.
trying to safely tiptoe our way to death.
Right.
Well, we're here. We're now here. Remember, we used to like value all these elders and their wisdom and everything else. Like, I can't wait for 50 now. Like, all of this wisdom and all the fun and everything else that comes with that. I don't need to
Right.
buy a new car to make me feel better about myself. I need to speak with more people like you. I need to just elevate myself and surround myself with better people.
Mm-hmm.
So even just the way society and everybody else just perceives that we're supposed to be at, like, 42,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm having the best time, better than my 20s,
Yeah.
believe it or
Oh,
not.
definitely. Especially when you're walking in your purpose, like you said, like
Oh,
your
yeah.
soul is like, it's such a beautiful thing to really understand yourself and believe in yourself and know that you are doing what you're called to do. And I really like the part when you said, that everybody's not going to be with you, because especially
Yeah.
when you started to become more aware of yourself, you said some people started to fall off, but
Yeah.
I like what you said, some they couldn't pull your strings anymore. And
Yeah.
so that was like, I can't pull her strings, so I'm just gonna let go of the string altogether.
Yep.
And they probably just faded away or
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, that was
And
great because that
it's
is so.
easy
Go
to do.
ahead.
It's really like, 'cause it's just like that now. It's like, what I recognize what's not mine. I still have some mess, and I always will, but, through that self-study, I can identify exactly what it is. So when I was just kind of for months in that depression, or not moving, not doing anything, my 2, they call them shadows, but we could call them mess or paradigms, is
Hmm.
inertia and indifference. So isn't that what I was doing the whole time? Nothing. And just being like, "Oh, I really don't care about what's going on and everything else." I identify that now, and I know damn well that I can't sit in that too long, because then
Right.
that happens. And I sit there, and now I can say, "All right, 1, is this mine? And if it is, what's coming up?" Lately it might have been that I was like tired and I didn't want to get burnt out. So a lot of things, although still helpful, I kind of pull back, and I'm more mindful of my time and what it is that I'm doing.
Hmm.
Whereas before I just would have let it run rampant, let people run rampant and things like that. But what I do now, and it's like, I used to be very shy and not say much to people, but like now it's just like, oh, that, if you need anything, I will help you, but this isn't mine. Like, a
Right.
lot of
Not
people
gonna
are
take
like,
it
oh,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like, "Oh, you're so busy," and whatever, and I said, "Thank you for letting me know, like, I will make time for you, but, like, that's something right now, this is something that I'm doing, I have to work really hard on, like, my kids are understanding of this, and they come first, so any free time that comes up, they come first, then we'll deal with that," because and it sounds callous, but that is their emotions, that is their feelings, but this is something that I have to do, and, you begin to just kind of say, "I acknowledge what it is, but it's not mine,"
Right.
and I was an
Exactly.
easy target for that, for people, taking that on, and I had no business,
Taking
doing that
on
from the state.
everybody else's.
Yeah, from the
Yes.
state that I was in, if they even could get in at that time, you know?
hmm
So
That's a lot of people do that. They take on everybody else's problems and their
mhm,
situations and their emotions. And then next thing you know, you're carrying everybody else's burdens and your
right,
own. And so you're like, hey, and that's a good point. Like you make time based on what needs to be done. Like you say, the
mhm,
kids come first, but they understand. And everybody don't, let me put it like this, everybody doesn't understand, especially when they are not going through or they haven't
right.
done that same type of work. So with all of that, what advice would you give someone in the audience that may be going through a similar type of situation that you've gone through?
So the first thing is to really have courage to take an honest look at yourself, because there's a point where I did get to a point where it was just like, all right, you almost look around and take inventory about what the hell is going on. And it isn't you're just, well, this is a wreck and this is a mess and everything else. So it's having the courage to be honest with yourself, and being able to say, what is it that I've allowed from people? What is it that I've allowed, and what choices have I made? And they're not always going to be like oh, I made this wrong choice. It really could be with people or choices that you've made that are greatly affecting your life. And it is that simple, that if said job or person or something wasn't in my life anymore, there goes that problem. It's not an easy choice, but you like when you really look around, you're just like, "Oh god, like this is," and really it had to be cut, 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 cut. And then from there, it's really not looking to, because then the first thing is like, "Oh, well, how can this help?" and this and that, and looking at what other people are doing, and how are they happy? It's gonna look grossly different. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why it then, that study of self and what it is that I can accomplish and things like that, that's really, important, and that's all I do now, is it's a self-study. It becomes almost like studying yourself is like almost studying your soul. Finally, it's like you're listening, you're finally listening. So that's the greatest advice, is just to have that courage to kind of show up and kind of see what it is that you're actually allowing, and the choices and people that you're making and relationships. And I'll be the first to be like, right now in my marriage, I don't know. I don't know. It's a day by day thing, but there are many things that I'm no longer allowing.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time some people listen to this podcast, we either could be together, we might not, but it is what it is, and that's how strongly I feel about things, like, and a lot of boundaries have been set, like, I tell people, coming from a Caribbean household with my parents, it used to be like, "Oh, you're doing this, and you're coming," and now it's just, like, setting those boundaries and being like, "I got crap to do." It's now like, "Oh, I really miss the kids, can you bring them? Are you available to bring the kids down?"
Mm-hmm.
Big difference in how people walk with you and kind of are around you and that aura and everything else. So it's really, really important. It's right now, it's my thing is my happiness, my peace. And for every woman with kids, when you have that, that's all your children want as well. And we
Mm,
have to allow them to kind of be themselves, and we can't put our we didn't have them to kind of make us happy. So again, that kind of extends both ways with people too. It's, you know, I you're happy, they will inadvertently be happy. They have a healthy parent.
mhm.
I'm able to show up much better and much more authentically and everything else while still, honoring them and, now studying their gene keys and their design, like especially my son. Really am able to just kind of like step back, appreciate that and everything else because we're only here to love ourselves, really. Even
Mhm.
with children, even with partners and friends and things like that. It really is here, and it will affect everything. I promise you.
And that's important that you said that, because one guest one time she said it's important for you to love yourself because you're going to be with yourself for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Like you may not be with your kids the rest of your life, you may not be with your spouse the rest of your life, but you will be with yourself. So
Yeah.
you need to learn to love yourself. Now, I know I have some, I could just feel that some listeners are probably saying, oh, well, if I'm saying it's myself, my love, that it comes across as being selfish. And I know you said earlier, it's not being selfish. So can you help those that may be thinking, oh, it's selfish to really only think of yourself? And then it's not that easy as people would think
No,
to
it's
just
never
cut
easy.
people.
Yeah, the self-exploration is never easy, but that's where that courage piece comes in. The most selfless thing that you can do is study yourself. When I was in this energy of trying to do what everybody else wanted to do, you're not serving anybody. And I wasn't even giving my authentic self. I was faking it to everybody, to be honest, like, which is something that everybody, when you show up authentically, again, the people that are there respect you for what it is that you're doing and who it is that, like, whatever you say, and you're not filtering anything. So that's no longer like an issue. And no, it's not easy. And through a lot of this self study, there are still some very hard truths, especially studying myself in terms of relationships and how I react when things don't go my way. In terms of like, oh, well, this is happening. Let me try and avoid conflict. So that's something through my study I'm finding. And I'm like, I actually want to run away from that, like reading and kind of be like, no, that's not true, but it's damn true. And but it's facing it and being like, okay, well, why don't I want to confront conflict? We have to have the courage to kind of see all of us, the beauty. There's going to definitely be beauty, but and I know we have this intimacy with our paradigms and the worst parts of us, but they're beautiful parts too.
Mhm.
And it's just learning about all of them and having the courage to kind of take inventory. Because where I'm at now is the people that are gone would have held me back again.
Yep.
And there's some they just would have held me back. I would
Yep.
not be here right now having the courage to speak confidently about what it is that I'm doing if I continue, because we already have a noisy roommate in our head. I don't need another live person in my face telling me, oh, well, you can't do that. You can't like go and speak to people and everything else. Like, we already have that, but when you have the courage to eliminate people or places or things that you are getting this intuitive, like, kind of hit that they're not there for you or this is not the place for you, and you
Mhm.
finally listen to yourself, all the answers are here. It sounds cheesy, but it is.
They are.
Everything. You'll
Mm,
never find anything outside, and which is why as a coach, I say, like, I don't have your answers. I have a way to guide you to your purpose and everything else, but that's all I am. It's
Mm-hmm.
self-study and helping you to guide yourself to a self-study. And that's really important. It's just, it's not easy. And I would never sit here and lie, because to get out of what I had to, I'm still clawing my way, but where I'm at now and the women that I'm surrounded by now, um, it's absolutely epic. The stages, opportunities, everything else. And I'm not faking it. It's just like there's no mask. It's authentic. It's whether you want me here or you don't. And that's okay, because then that doesn't waste anybody else's time. But right now, if you're thinking like, this can't be easy and all of this sounds great, but it's not easy, you're worth it.
Mm.
You're worth it. And it's not worth sitting and arguing with people. And that's just, that in itself was so draining.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Like, so I rather take that same energy, learn about myself, and a lot of things, it's better and better. Just like, and learning more about these shadows and things like that, or these paradigms, and being able to come out of them faster.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of, that's what it's about. It's really coaching yourself, but we all deserve better. There's so much in us that where we need to be, and I guarantee it far surpasses what you're kind of thinking you're capable of right now.
Right. And with that, I know you say you do some coaching and some consulting. So if someone did need some help, need some coaching in order for them to like come through and come out of what they're going through, how can they reach you or connect with you in order to get that support?
Right. So down in the show notes, there's a link to a clarity call, is what I like to call it. And it's basically getting an inventory, right, of like parenting, finance, all wheel of life type of things. And we kind of go through that and speak about that, and just briefly discuss things. And then we kind of go from there to see if I'm a fit for you.
Hmm.
And then kind of the tools that I use, it could be regular coaching, or but I tend to, Gene Keys and human design really help me. Like I become like a surgeon, like, because it's able to kind of take your general, like, I'm not feeling great, but from the clarity call, I'm able to see where it is that you are most unhappy. And from your design, can actually see name that thing. And then there's a whole self-study of that we can do and kind of work through together, to kind of work on those things. So it's very much tailored to you and your design. So you're not wasting time, or I'm not wasting time, like trying to figure things out. This is what it is. Um, and there's different tiers that I offer for people that just kind of want to know what this is and how can it help. And then getting a little bit more general knowledge, and then really kind of getting the full experience, and just having me work with them through all of the tiers. So it's really, really powerful.
Okay, that's awesome. So everybody at the end, most definitely, I'll have the link available for everyone. So
Yes.
make sure you listen to the end. At the outro, you'll see all of her information. It'll also be in the show notes for my listeners who can't view it. And before we get out of here and before we wrap up, are there any last words of encouragement that you'd like to leave our audience?
Yes, to reconnect back to you. Stop, looking at everything outside of you. Some people are inspirational, and some people you might think have what you want and have all this prosperity that you want. But I guarantee when you are able to look inside and, really, really see what it is that you're capable of, it far surpasses what a lot of people that, for me, what I was admiring. I was like, oh my gosh, I could do that and better. and I'm meant to do that. So just note that there is, although other people are doing amazing things, there's something inside you that you're not allowing yourself to tap into, and it's really, really important. So just to take that inventory right now of what is it that keeps coming, that's your spidey sense. What
Mhm.
keeps coming up that you keep ignoring, because that is your answer to the way out of this, whatever this
Mm,
is. So,
yes.
yeah.
I didn't want to cut that. I didn't want to cut you off because that was good. Like that
No,
spidey
yeah,
sense
no.
will not pay. That spidey sense will guide you and lead
Mhm.
you, especially, y'all out there, y'all know that spidey sense that y'all get, and we call it that intuition or
Yes.
whatever it is.
Don't ignore it.
Follow
I
it.
did that for
Exactly.
far too long, and just finally paying attention. There's a reason why, and I
Mhm.
know it hurts. Not everybody's meant to be here, you're not meant to stay. I far extended my welcome at my job. I know that now, but I ignored, 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 ignored. So, just whatever keeps coming up, it's so important. We have
Yes.
all the answers. We literally, we just ignore them. We're taught to ignore this stuff. So
For
it's
real. Like I know, and I can see the passion in you, like,
I know,
man, like
because
for
it's
real.
just like I know you see it with people, and immediately people are like, "What?" But it's an amazing thing, and I really, really, it makes me so happy to for people to finally be like, "I see myself." Not
Mm,
just like in a mirror or in a camera or whatever, but like I really see myself where that's really where I can go. Like and it's like, yes. And like, trust me, I'm doing it. And things are just the opportunities and beautiful people I never would have, you know, like it's a pleasure today. It really is and I stop every time and think like, there are people I wouldn't get to meet for like all over the world in our country and things like that. And if I was still that person, just like in bed, like watching Netflix and just al- allowing
mhm.
others. That's, you know,
And that's what I was gonna say. I thank you because you just said it. Like if you would have stayed the way you were,
yeah.
you wouldn't have this message that will be reaching all over the world
Mhm.
because we have listeners and audience that listen from literally all over the world. So your message is going to be able, I know without a doubt, there's someone listening who is going to be impacted and touched by your story.
Yeah.
And hopefully they will be inspired and influenced to
Mhm.
make that change and to find themselves
Yeah.
because it just feels amazing like you said when someone says I see myself, like
Yeah.
yes, it just feels so rewarding.
Yeah.
Um but Miss Sasha, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I'm going to just, I really 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 thank you. I really appreciate you, and I thank you for taking the time out to be here.
I love it. I love it. I thank you for the opportunity always.
All right. And as we wrap up another episode of What's Your Mess, I want to leave you with this powerful quote to carry with you in your hearts. If you want to be sad, keep thinking about the past. But if you want to be anxious or worried, keep thinking about the future. If you want to be happy, focus on the present day and be grateful for what you have. Again, this is Tracey D Armstrong with What's Your Mess. Have a good one, y'all.